Hello students, welcome to another lecture of human anatomy and physiology, and in our last lecture we started with homeostasis and today we will be studying about the feedback loop, right? So let's start. So feedback loop is basically a loop, or a feedback is basically a situation where the output of the loop impacts or influences the input or the stimuli which causes the disturbance in the loop. For example, if your body temperature rises, there are certain things that happen in your body. For example, you start sweating so that the temperature comes back to normal. So this is the entire feedback system. Feedback can be both positive and negative, right? As it is shown in this particular slide also, there is an individual, when the body decreases, heating mechanism is achieved or activated, and the body again comes back to, the temperature rises and it comes back to normal. Then there is a second situation in which the body temperature increases due to certain factors and the cooling mechanism is activated, which results in, for example, sweating. And body temperature again come back to, it decreases, the body temperature decreases and comes back to normal. So this is a feedback loop. And when this feedback loop is disturbed, distorted, then condition can become fatal. As I told you in my previous slide, there are two types of feedback system, one being your positive feedback and the other being the negative feedback. Now we'll be starting with the negative feedback loop first. So negative feedback it basically results in an output that tends to minimize the effect of the result which is caused by the stimuli, right? The activation is caused when the value of the variable, like the body temperature or the value of the pH, it goes above the normal value and therefore the value has to be reduced. So at that time negative feedback comes into play. Right? We'll understand the negative feedback system with the help of an example in the next slide. Here, the thermostat is connected to the boiler or the control unit, control center, which controls the boiler effector. Right? So the thermostat constantly compares the information from the detector with the preset temperature. When the thermostat detects that the room temperature is low, it switches the boiler on, and as a result of switching the boiler on, this results in the increase in room temperature. The result is output of heat by the boiler warming the room. When the preset temperature is reached, the system is again reversed, right? So the thermostat detects the high room temperature and turns the boiler off. So this is basically a feedback loop which keeps on working. This was a normal example from our everyday lives, and same happens inside the human body also. I'll give you an example of the physiological negative feedback also. When the body temperature falls below the preset level, this particular thing is detected by a specific temperature sensitive nerve ending in the hypothalamus of the brain, because we know that the hypothalamus of the brain detects the changes in the temperature. This center then activates a mechanism that helps in the rise of the body temperature, and the activities can include the stimulation of skeletal muscle causing shivering, the narrowing of the blood vessels in the skin reducing the blood flow, or there can be certain behavioral changes. Like, for example, we can put more clothes or we can curl up. So when the body temperature rises again, right? So as these mechanisms are activated, the body temperature comes back to normal. So this is an example of negative feedback system. Now talking about the positive feedback system, there are certain systems or cascades that can amplify the effect of a stimuli. Amplify means increase. So some biological and natural system might utilize the positive feedback loop, where the output of the loop tends to increase the effect of the stimuli. Right? For example, a very good example is during the time of childbirth. In this case, what happens, as the baby's head pushes the cervix, the neuron in that systems are activated. This causes the brain to send signal to produce more oxytocin, which further increases the uterine contraction, putting more pressure on the cervix and facilitating childbirth. So this is an example of positive feedback system. So this is basically the example of negative feedback system. In my last slide where I was teaching you negative feedback system, we had an example, a non-physiological example of negative feedback. This is an example of physiological feedback, wherein there are certain changes in the human body and the body temperature increases. When the body temperature increases, the information is sent to the detector, or the detector detects the information that the body temperature has increased. Then it further sends signals to the control center, which is the hypothalamus. Then the control center sends information to the effector for some activities or some mechanism. For example, the skeletal muscle, they start shivering, they can start shivering. The second mechanism can be that the control centers can send information to the blood vessels to narrow, so that the blood flow in that particular area reduces, right? And there can be certain behavioral changes as well, for example curling up or putting more clothes, right? So thank you so much, dear students. This was all in today's lecture. Today we studied about the negative and positive feedback system. Negative feedback system is a system which negates the effect of the stimuli, meaning that it inhibits the effect of the stimuli, and positive feedback system is it amplifies the effect of the stimuli, right? So if you have any queries, any doubt in today's lecture, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for attending the class. Thank you.